Families often have conflicts or financial problems, but there are also families who manage to stay together and cope with everyday life. It's pretty clear which one of them is happier, isn't it? My name is Jessica, and since I was a kid, I've been called a weirdo. I do not know what is special about me, but people say that I am different. When they call me other, it doesn't seem to be a problem. The real problem is the disregard of my feelings and experiences by my own parents. My childhood was filled with deep emotions. I've always been sensitive to the moods of others, like a sensitive receiver picking up the elusive. I could understand what they were thinking, even when the words remained unexpressed. It was as natural as breathing. I remember one day I felt an unpleasant atmosphere when my father's colleague came to our house. I warned my mother to be careful, but, alas, she did not listen. Later, this man tricked my father into signing a contract as a loan guarantor. When I saw my father and his colleague sitting down at the table, something inside me, some inner voice, whispered that the word joint was fraught with danger. I didn't know what a joint was, but I intuitively felt that my father had to be careful. And fortunately, he hesitated and eventually refused to sign. Thanks to this, when his colleague went bankrupt and could not repay the debt, my father avoided serious financial consequences. Another time, when I was shopping with my mom, I felt a wave of anxiety coming from behind. I turned around and saw a man in sunglasses and a hat. I had a bad feeling about this. I grabbed my mom's hand and pulled her into the alley. My mom was confused and asked what happened, but as soon as we turned off, we heard screams, "Thief!" The man, who had looked so plain before, grabbed the woman's purse and rushed away. The woman fell and was badly hurt, but if we hadn't crossed into the alley, my mother might have been trapped in it. Such incidents occurred frequently. I became strange to others, and this, sadly, caused my parents to distance themselves. I felt lonely and isolated. What seemed normal to me seemed abnormal to others. I started hiding my thoughts, suppressing my feelings. Normal people, it seemed to me, don't feel what I feel. That's why I tried to be like everyone else, dreaming of just becoming an ordinary child. I have a sister, Katie, who is 4 years younger than me. Unlike me, she was an ordinary girl, with her immaculate laugh and rainbow smile. Over the years, I became more and more withdrawn, while Katie blossomed, becoming more and more sweet and charming. In the eyes of our parents, she was the ideal, while I remained on the dark side, as they sometimes jokingly said. Although they noticed that I had become less strange, their opinion of me remained unchanged. I continued to believe that I was different from what they called weird. I felt that my sensitivity was not a disadvantage, but a way to cope with the cruel world that surrounded me. But every day it became more and more difficult for me to cope with this ability. I wondered if my attempts to look normal, on the contrary, are becoming the reason that I am more and more considered strange. The image that was imposed on me seemed unbearable, like a shadow that haunts me, refusing to leave. I grew up without much love from my parents, and in this context, Katie received all the warmth and care that should have belonged to me. She was spoiled, pampered, and every day I felt our parents becoming more and more cold and distant towards me. Katie, easily ignoring my gloominess, began to look down on me. "I don't like being around you. Your dark aura has been passed on to me. I'm so sweet, and you're the moon in your own world," she said easily, and it was like the tip of a knife stabbing into my soul. Every time Katie had the opportunity, she insulted me, and our parents only scolded her slightly, but never tried to correct her behavior. When I was in 8th grade and Katie was in 5th grade, she was approached by a talent agency on the street. I knew it wasn't an accident, but instead of appreciating this moment, Katie was happy. "I can even appear on television." She dreamed of more, and our parents seemed to be completely on her side, approving of her aspirations. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something fishy behind all this. I expressed my doubts, remembering the intuition that I had suppressed for a long time so as not to embarrass Katie. She, not understanding my concern and her excessive self-confidence, waved me off. "You're just jealous because no one comes up to you. You don't say weird things, so stop bothering me." Even my parents, whether they knew about my unique abilities or just forgot, supported her and criticized me. At that moment, I decided to shut up again, convincing myself that there was nothing good in saying unnecessary things. One day, a student teacher appeared in our high school, full of enthusiasm and dreams of becoming a physical education teacher. He shared his ideas, and all the students, including my sister, reacted charmingly to him. However, I felt a dark aura from him, which made me tense up. I always swore to hide my abilities, but at this moment, when my classmates could be in danger, I decided to break my rule. I chose a teacher who seemed to understand, and, gathering all the courage, approached her. "I know this is sudden, but please believe me and help me." The teacher was puzzled, but agreed to meet with me after school. I didn't reveal the details, but the fact that she agreed without hesitation made me think that she wasn't an ordinary person either. The next day, a scandal broke out at the school. Our student teacher was arrested for violating the law on the prevention of public order violations. A teacher I didn't trust turned up next to the girls' bathroom, and thanks to my warning, the students were saved from secret videotaping. Meanwhile, my sister, proud of her new status, shared her dreams of the stage, not noticing that it was all an illusion. The talent agency deceived her, leaving only an empty shell. Katie soon found out that there were no real lessons, and that she only had to pay for membership and classes. She exploded in anger, shouting, "It's all because of you. You said strange things, and now my future is ruined." I couldn't understand how she could connect her failures with my experiences. It was probably the only way Katie could deal with what was going on in her life, but for me it turned out to be a disaster and a nuisance. Our parents, as if ignoring my worries, became more and more distant, and their favor for Katie only increased. I felt lonely again, like a stranger in my own home, while my sister enjoyed the attention and care that I never got. I was happy that I was able to help everyone at school, but the fear that my actions would drive me into a corner always haunted me. One day I got a call from a teacher who showed interest in my story and asked me to come to the staff room. I was worried that I might be called strange again, and, gathering my courage, I opened the door. "You knew something like this was going to happen, didn't you?" the teacher asked quietly, and I realized that he was ready to listen. "I finally decided to tell you about my mysterious power." His words, "There are very few people like you," encouraged me. For the first time, he showed understanding and supported me, reminding me that he knows someone who has experienced something like this. This woman, who turned out to be my aunt, shared her stories, and I remembered how long I had been listening to them. The teacher suggested that I meet her. "You must be worried about a lot of things because of your strength, and maybe advice from someone who has been in your place will help clear your mind." And when I saw Hannah, her kind, penetrating eyes made a deep impression on me. She told me it was okay to worry, but not necessarily to suffer. Since my communication with Hannah began, she has become my mentor, although she just smiled and asked me not to call her that. Thanks to her, I began to change, finding inner peace. I tried to remain unnoticed, but gradually realizing my abilities, I began to lead the life of an ordinary girl. However, the incident with the talent agency left a mark, and I couldn't reconcile with Katie. It became the norm for her not to talk to me, and if she did, it was only to complain or insult. I often didn't understand what was causing her mood swings, and my power couldn't predict her emotional changes. "Just because you went to college doesn't make you a better person," she could throw in my face, and all I heard was complete displeasure. Her disappointment in life became apparent when she wondered how I could be happy with my achievements. Katie, who had hoped for one high school, ended up in a second-choice institution, which only exacerbated her anger. When I went to college of my first choice and once again shared this news, Katie did nothing but scold me, pouring out all her anger at me because of her own disappointment. Our parents were just trying to calm her down, keeping their distance from me, as if I was something dangerous. I noticed that my sister couldn't accept that I started to open up after meeting Hannah. She hated my path to the light, and maybe that made her even more aggressive. Despite the fact that my sister was smart, her academic success did not always reflect her abilities. After failing the entrance exams, she ended up at a new high school, and this disappointment made her even more determined. As a result, she became the best in her class for all 4 years and, eventually, at the first attempt, she entered a prestigious national university. I envied her, but I couldn't understand why she couldn't find the strength to support me when I needed it so much. I got into the most difficult university that was never even heard of in my college, and when Katie proudly bragged about it, I lightly replied that it was true for my contented sister. But deep down, I knew that nothing good would happen if I got too carried away with her success. My reaction, it seemed to me, was innocent, but Katie perceived it as an attempt to belittle her achievements, and soon I was hit by a barrage of her verbal insults. Our parents were at a dead end, not knowing how to calm her down when she lost her temper. All they could do was stare at each other nervously. In the end, they accused me of creating problems and called me a troublemaker. I wanted to object, to point out who really is the problem child in our family, but I swallowed my words again, realizing that this would only aggravate the situation and postpone solving Katie's problems. As I got closer to graduating from college, I had to seriously think about my career path. I was no longer as introverted as before, although I still had difficulty communicating and was not confident in building good relationships with others. My ability to sense people's negative emotions poisoned my school years, because I was constantly faced with seething negativity. I was close to losing faith in people. Will someone like me really be able to work in a company where emotions are raging like the ocean during a storm? In search of an answer, I decided to consult with my mentor, Hannah. I wanted to know how she had overcome similar problems, and I was sure that she had also faced difficulties. I was experiencing the same anxieties as you, she said. Maybe you should consider doing the same job as me. She told me about her career as a fortune teller and consultant, and how she helps people solve their problems. Her abilities allowed her to contribute to the world and to the lives of the people around her. Working as a freelance consultant gave her the opportunity to avoid the pitfalls of human relationships, and she painted the perfect picture for people like us. Inspired by her words, I decided to follow in her footsteps. Hannah taught me everything from how to do my job to how to attract clients. With the advent of the internet, it has become quite possible to work from home. I shared this idea with my parents and sister, telling them that I was not going to look for a traditional job after graduating from university. The reaction was predictable. "What kind of job is this?" Katie screamed. "It seems such a stupid idea. You'll be at home all the time. At least let's do something useful already." They kept telling me how I should earn a living, how I would cover expenses and contribute to the household. My parents' opinion hurt me again, and I felt their support waning. Sad thoughts about how they perceived my choice overwhelmed me, and soon my life began working from home. At first, I didn't have any job requests, and I struggled day after day, feeling my strength leave me. But with Hannah's help, I gradually got used to this new world. After about a year, I started earning a living, but I still couldn't contribute financially to the household, focusing on housework. My father seemed unsatisfied, but my mother felt relieved and tried to keep the situation under control. After a while, when I could take care of myself, she accepted my choice and supported me, explaining to my father that it was important to be happy and do what brought joy. I finally started contributing financially to our household, and when my father chuckled, saying, "Oh, you can finally earn some change for pocket money, huh?" It seemed to me that there was a hint of irony in his words. Although he was actually pleased that I started earning money, it couldn't hide the fact that my household responsibilities hadn't decreased and our lives remained the same as before. 3 years after my success at work, my sister Katie graduated from college and got a job at a foreign company. Unlike you, I'm an elite, "You're just an unemployed man living at the bottom of a barrel," she said, and I felt her words pierce me. It's amazing how someone I was once so close to could humiliate me so easily. She would add that working from home is nothing more than a game, and I'm really nothing more than a parasite living with my parents. Every time she reproached me for not working hard enough, I felt even more vulnerable. "You're nothing more than an inactive shadow," Kitty continued, proudly talking about her promotion to team leader and how her salary is now 5 times mine. As if that would impress anyone other than herself. She bragged, but deep down I knew that she barely contributed money to the household. All this time, the laundry and cooking duties were on me and our mother, and every time I tried to talk to Katie about her obligations, she waved me off with disdain. "You're just unemployed," she repeated, like a memorized spell. Once, when I said to her, "Katie, you have to take care of yourself a little bit and contribute," she just laughed, ridiculing my words. "I'm saving money for my future, and you stay here with your mom," she replied, and I realized that our parents would not interfere again. They let Katie do as she pleased, as if her success justified her neglect. Shortly after, Katie broke the news to us without warning, which shocked our entire family. She proudly announced that she was dating a young man named Jack, who has a real elite with an annual income that I didn't even dare to dream of. "Marriage is just a pipe dream for you," she said with a grin, and then added that she would bring her boyfriend to meet with us next Sunday. When that day came, I still couldn't get over her announcement. The Jack she brought looked like a successful young man in a formal suit, and his confident manner impressed me. "My name is Jack, and I would like to ask your permission to marry Katie," he said, perfectly demonstrating his politeness. Katie was beaming with happiness when he said those words. "So, Jack, what are you doing?" my father asked, clearly impressed. "I'm currently training at a company my father knows," Jack replied. This word, training, caused me confusion, but Katie was happy to add that his father is the president of the company, and Jack is also going to become president in the future. I was amazed at how quickly she ascended to the 7th heaven with happiness, having found such a man. After this meeting, conversations with Jack dragged on, and he was certainly charming. But there were a few things that stuck in my head that made me wary. I noticed how easily Katie grinned when Jack complimented her, and it told me that not everything was as rosy as it seemed. But my parents were delighted with Jack's high status, and, as usual, I found myself in the shadows, listening to their enthusiastic comments, while my own doubts remained unspoken. However, I felt an inexplicable dark shadow looming over the whole scene. Jack seemed to be a refreshing and good-natured man, but deep down I knew that this atmosphere was hiding something sinister. Struggling to find words, I couldn't keep silent any longer, driven by a strong intuition. "Katie, you've only been dating him for less than 4 months. Maybe you should get to know him a little better before deciding whether to get married?" But she just brushed me off, accusing me of envy and jealousy. "You are better, comparing your life with mine," she scoffed, and our parents only confirmed her words. The evil looks on their faces said more than words. I felt isolated, while my parents hoped that Katie's successful marriage would provide them with a comfortable old age. Every word they said increased my disappointment. I couldn't explain how I felt. That dark shadow hanging over Katie was an integral part of my anxiety. Being in a state of constant anxiety, I was spinning my head while our families were meeting, and I had no idea about anything. The wedding day has arrived. The whole hall was filled, and the CEO of our company was sitting among the guests. Can you imagine how highly I am appreciated and expected in the company? Katie said enthusiastically, not even noticing how dismissive she was of me. Her words sounded like a blow when she left the house. At a wedding ceremony held in a luxury hotel, a couple who swore eternal love entered the hall. I looked at Katie, who was beaming with happiness, but worry continued to grow in my heart. How long will this happiness last? After the CEO's eloquent speech, full of praise for Katie, I felt something tighten inside me. The food served on the other tables looked great, but there was nothing on my table. I thought my portion was just late, but as time went on, others were already served drinks and snacks. The strangeness of the situation began to cause people to be perplexed, and whispers filled the hall. At that moment, Katie came up to me, leaning towards me. She whispered with a grin, "We did not prepare free meals for the unemployed. It's a waste to serve such food to an unemployed person. It's better to eat potatoes at home." Her words sounded loud, like a punch in the face, and I felt my ears ringing. Jack, who was sitting at the groom's table, was laughing, and our parents seemed to share his opinion. I was shocked, not understanding how they could afford such rudeness. As soon as the realization came, I felt a wave of anger. How could you stoop so low, little sister? This is unacceptable. How could you accept such behavior? My words, full of resentment, rang out in silence, but my parents just frowned, not bothering to make a remark to Katie. "Okay, I'm leaving," I said, choking back tears, "but don't come crying to me later." Emotions were bubbling inside me, and as I left the hall, I realized that a dark shadow was still enveloping us, hiding the true face of this holiday. I said, "You sound like an offended loser," and these words seemed to break the silence around. Katie cocked her head, ready to object, but suddenly, in the chaos of these incredible events, the man who introduced himself as Larry stood up. "Sorry for the interruption, I'm the groom's brother. My brother and his parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse." His words exploded like lightning in the hall, and I felt the whole atmosphere change. I can't stand this pretense anymore. "Dad, your company went bankrupt 5 months ago. Isn't that a trick? Jack will never become CEO. He only planned to steal his wife, pretending to be unemployed." Larry's words caused a stir among the guests. I saw Katie turn pale, her face changed from red to blue, and her eyes filled with tears. She screamed, "What do you mean? You lied to me." The parents, initially full of confidence in their own judgments, began to panic, and their screams echoed throughout the hall. The groom and his family were silent, looked sullen, their faces expressed nothing but confusion. I felt a wave of shame and anger wash over me. How could you afford to be so rude? I tried to protest when Larry, in turn, began to apologize. But then another man stood up, the president of Katie's company. "You have no right to criticize the groom. What do you think about your terrible attitude towards your own sister?" His angry voice made Katie grimace in fear. "I didn't come to your wedding for you," the president said. "I wouldn't have come if it wasn't for you." Suddenly my name was mentioned, and Katie's eyes widened in surprise. "Who are you talking about?" she asked, but the president continued, "Jessica is a goddess to many of us business owners. It saves countless companies from collapse. In fact, with her help, I worked as a consultant on corporate regeneration and growth." Every word he said caused a new excitement in the hall. I used my abilities to show companies the way they should go. All my advice was accurate, and the companies that turned to me for help experienced a rapid revival. In business, I have achieved a V-shaped recovery. Thanks to my advice, your sister's company has also gone through difficult times, and it has become a stronger enterprise, he added, and I felt a mixture of pride and bewilderment bubbling inside me. I couldn't believe that my path, full of difficulties and uncertainty, suddenly turned out to be a light for others. At that moment, Katie finally realized the truth. "You're not just unemployed in the basement," she exclaimed, her voice shaking with shock. "You really mean a lot to people." Our family's eyes filled with surprise and bewilderment when their assumptions were shattered. "Now I earn several times more than you do," I continued, feeling a wave of confidence wash over me. "I actually made a significant contribution to the family income." The parents, realizing their mistake, only looked at each other, their faces expressing confusion. "We thought Katie provided the money," they muttered, lowering their eyes in embarrassment. They misunderstood the situation. Katie would never bring money into the house. The wedding reception turned into chaos. This whole holiday, full of expectations and hopes, turned into a complete disappointment. Wedding gifts began to be returned to the guests, and I have already signed an apartment agreement in my name. A feeling of joy and relief, mixed with bitterness, filled me. I can't afford it on my own, especially now that he's unemployed, Katie sobbed. Jack, unable to restrain himself, objected. You signed a contract that I don't know anything about. All this time, the wedding was a disaster, and Katie's anger towards others turned into her complete collapse. In the end, she divorced Jack and demanded alimony, unaware that his parents were in as difficult a financial situation as we were. Katie was in a difficult position. After her divorce from Jack, she couldn't get much alimony, and she barely managed to cover the costs of the wedding venue, let alone the apartment she rented for their new life. The place that was supposed to be their love nest remained empty, and the lease was terminated. But the debt didn't go away, and Katie found herself under the weight of loans that seemed to snowball. Her behavior at the wedding quickly became the subject of gossip in her company. Colleagues condemned her short temper and arrogance, which led to a sharp decline in her reputation. The CEO had to make a difficult decision to demote Katie. She lost not only her status, but also the respect of her colleagues, with whom she proudly carried the title of elite. Left with no prospects for growth, Katie would like to leave, but the need to pay off debts kept her in place. She continued to work, but now her workplace was in a small, dark closet in the basement, which became an ominous symbol of her fall from the heights. Her once impeccable reputation had evaporated, and now she was just a shadow of herself. Jack and his parents, whose plan to kidnap Katie for her wealth failed, also found themselves at the bottom. Now they were living off odd jobs, having lost both status and respect. Jack's older brother, Gary, severed all ties with the family, refusing to support them. Katie's parents, who saw her as a path to financial security, quickly turned away when they realized that their daughter was no longer able to provide them with the luxurious life they were used to. They reached out to me, hoping for support, but I was adamant. I've had enough of your manipulation. I am severing all ties with you. Goodbye forever, I told them coldly. These words pierced their ambitions and hopes for my help like a knife. I left to start a new life in a newly rented apartment, an apartment they couldn't even afford. Katie, trying to make ends meet, realized how quickly life can collapse. Her salary was cut several times, and she could no longer participate in household expenses. I stopped all financial assistance to my parents, and without me they found themselves in a difficult situation, facing the inability to maintain their previous standard of living every day. Stress and despair became constant companions of their days. While my family suffered, I prospered. My work has grown and developed, and I have helped many companies and people get out of difficult situations. With each new success, my reputation grew, and more clients turned to me for advice. This brought me not only financial stability, but also a sense of deep satisfaction. For the first time in my life, I felt that my skills were really appreciated, and my work had a real impact on the lives of others. After the chaos that happened at the wedding, I started dating Larry. He was honest and brave in those difficult moments, and we became close. He recently proposed to me, and I gladly accepted him. Larry was a man with a pure heart, completely unlike the people my sister once surrounded herself with. He was sincere, kind, and reliable. I look forward to building a happy life with him, filled with love, respect, and mutual support. We dream of a future where bright days full of joy and harmony await us. Every conversation we have about the future fills me with a sense of hope and excitement. We discuss our plans and dreams, how we will support each other in everything we do. When I think about everything that happened, I am overwhelmed with mixed feelings. I am glad that I have finally severed all ties with my parents and sister, who never appreciated me. I am proud of the path I have come through, despite all the difficulties, and I am immensely grateful to Larry, who brought love and light into my life. I see a bright future ahead of me and I am ready to go towards it, step by step, hand in hand with Larry.